Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to get ready for back to school, and we're specifically going to look at the TI-84 Plus platform. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. I'm really excited to introduce our two panelists for tonight, Ruth Casey and Margot Menkes. Ruth lives in Kentucky, where she taught mathematics in grades 8 through 12. A T-Cube national instructor, textbook author, and former member of the NCTM Board of Directors, Ruth specializes in grades 7 through 12 mathematics, instructional technology, and professional development for mathematics teachers. During the 2016-17 school year, Ruth will provide training and classroom support as she continues her work with teachers in TI Math Forward, T-Cubed Boost, and Gear Up programs. Ruth, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody.
And Margot is currently the Product Development Manager for the TI-84 Plus Classroom Solutions at Texas Instruments. She enjoys working with TI software developers and teams of educators to bring the educator's quote-unquote wish list to the graphing calculator classroom. Margot is an applied mathematician and enjoyed a fulfilling university teaching career, teaching math majors and pre-service elementary and secondary teachers in Illinois, Utah, Montana, Virginia, and New York. While teaching, she was involved in NSF and Eisenhower grants for teacher training, gave numerous presentations at NCTM and T-Cube conferences, and facilitated professional development workshops. Margot, thanks so much for being with us. We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free at any time to send any questions to Ruth or Margot using the Q&A window on the right side of the screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. Again, with the recording, the nice thing about the recording is tonight you can just relax and ask questions if you have them, but try not to follow along with your handheld. It might be best to do that with the recording, that way you can go at your own pace. We hope you don't have any audio issues, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the WebEx menu at the top and choose Audio Broadcast. And if that doesn't clear up your audio issues, in the participant window where your name is listed, in the lower left-hand corner of that window, there's a little phone icon. If you click that phone icon, it will give you the option of calling into the webinar using your telephone, and that hopefully should clear up any potential audio issues. At this point, Margot is going to discuss our agenda.
Hi. So our agenda for tonight is very full. We just did the welcomes and introductions. Ruth will run through some information on computations and more on the home screen, graphing and tracing functions using tables, using the draw menu, highly interactive, exploring data and using a program. And then I'll be sharing some activities using the Transformation Graphing app, and also talking about graphing piecewise functions, actually probably in the reverse order. We'll see the TI-SmartView CE emulator software. You'll also get a sneak peek at a new release that's coming in the fall. And we will be focusing on the activities that will work on the TI-84 Plus, the TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition, and the TI-84 Plus CE. And each of those calculators have enhancements as we move forward, but we will make sure that the activities are right for you. Also, and Mike will cover this later, you can win a registration for two for the 2018 T-Cubed International Conference, which is in San Antonio this year. Lots of fun. If you haven't been there, it's an amazing conference. And Mike, I think we can move to the next slide.
Thanks so much, Margaret. I just want to add to that, we are going to do that live drawing at the end of the webinar, so be sure to stick around. We're going to randomly be choosing a name from those of you that are attending tonight. So tonight, someone will be our lucky winner. And I believe, Ruth, you're going to discuss our expected outcomes.
Thanks, Mike. As Margot mentioned, I'm going to be doing some things on the home screen, reviewing some things about computation, how to connect that with some graphs and tables, looking into how we can use the draw menu in an interactive environment, and exploring some data that is stored in a program. And then moving ahead in the second portion, using the graphing app, looking at Piecewise functions as we look at connections between the analytic and the graphical representations, learning more about TI-84 plus CE, the SmartView emulator, and TI-Connect CE software, and looking at where we can find resources, activities, and software and updates on the education website from TI.
All right, Ruth, I believe you have control, and it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I've switched the screen to show a handout. It's going to be one of the documents that's available to you. Just to give you an idea of that print document that you can have. It's a PDF. There's a screenshot of just about everything I'm going to do tonight, unless we get some question that we need to go down a different path. But so all the screenshots are there. You don't need to worry about, as Mike said, try and press the buttons and keep up. But it's all going to be there in that document that you're going to get a link to. So just briefly, I'm going to look at review some of the menus, shortcuts that we have on the 84 Plus and the 84 CE. And then using test menu, how I can get some Boolean characters in there to move beyond calculations and have it be have it help me have students think about the mathematics that they're looking at rather than just being a number cruncher. Making some connections between functions and graphs and tables, using the draw menu interactively, and then looking at a program where some data is stored. You don't have to have the program, but it's a nice way to store data and to graph it and to share it. And then on the handout that you'll get, just a recap of some of the shortcuts we might get to talk about tonight. They're not new, but they're often overlooked or forgotten about, or, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody tell me that before now, that kind of a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and let you have a look at my SmartView software. So this is TI-SmartView CE. Move that down a little bit. There we go. This is for the CE family of 84 calculators. Margot's going to be talking about it even more. As I get started, I'm going to just show you that I have it in the mode for 84 plus CE, the latest model of the 84, but you can use this software for all three models of the 84 plus. The mode screen is showing right now. I have reset everything. Just a quick reminder, second plus 7 will take you to a reset. And I reset all the defaults just before we began tonight because I wanted everything back to the left. It'll do a few more things than that, but in the mode screen, everything is to the left, and graphing format, things are set to the left. So resetting to defaults, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, or just briefly show you. The software that I'm using, as I said, is the TI-SmartView CE. Here's a picture of education.ti.com website. Again, towards the end of the webinar, that'll be discussed more. There are some new activities just been uploaded and available to us within the past couple of weeks. STEM Behind Cool Careers, available for Inspire and 84. Both models of those calculators and the software keep on going for us. Lots of great activities there. So Cool Careers, if you haven't had a chance to look at those, you'll want to explore those when you have a chance. Under Downloads, I agree, yay, new stuff. Under Downloads, that's where I always go to look if I need to see what version of the handheld or what version of the operating system for the handheld. So I just clicked on Downloads, Software OS Updates. You can just have a pull-down menu here and see what you need to be doing. I'm going to be using the TI-84 plus CE. On the handheld, the latest version of that is 5.22. You don't have to memorize it. It's easy to look up. If you're using 84 plus Silver Edition, the latest version of that is 2.55 MP, MP for math print. If you don't have math print on your 84 plus, you want to get that update. Okay, so now go ahead and get started and do a few things on the home screen. Wanted to highlight some shortcut menus that we have. And you have this on the 84 plus Silver. If you've updated to the 2.55 MP, you have it on the C and the CE. When I press Alpha and then the top buttons up here, Alpha's green. I have accessed the F1 mini pop-up menu, which is my fraction menu. Just moving to the right, you can see that we also have a shortcut menu to some of the math functionality. It's somewhere else. If you're used to finding it on your previous model, it's still there, but we have a shortcut menu to it. And if you did Alpha Zoom, it's your shortcut for creating matrices. And Alpha Trace is your shortcut to Y variables. All right, some nice ways to find some things. I'm just going to go back and do just a simple problem. So I did alpha y equals. I'm going to choose number 1. It'll give me a vertical fraction. It's nice to have them appear on my screen the way they would appear on paper in a textbook resource. When I'm doing this, it gives me the right arrow icon there. I kind of think of that as tab. It's not really tab, but it's sending me to the next place that I might need to do something. So I'm just going to quickly do 5/8 plus, and then retrieve another fraction out of my shortcut menu. I'll do, let's see, 2, and I press the right arrow, thirds, press the right arrow again. Just where is the cursor? Where do I want it to be? How do I move from one place to the next? All right, 31/24. If you wanted to change that to a decimal or to a mixed number, you can retrieve those out of your fraction shortcut pop-up menu again. Alpha y equals. Choice 3 would switch it to a mixed number, and choice 4 would switch it to a decimal. It would switch it back to a fraction if it were a decimal. All right, so that's just that, a reminder of our alpha menus up there with the function buttons, F1, F2, F3, and F4. Next thing I'm just going to do sign of, and I wanted to point this out. A lot of times we forget that we need to talk about angle measure. What units of measure am I using? A lot of students started out measuring in degrees, and then later on we switched to radians. I saw a pop-up question that said, do all of these have these? Yes, the 84 do. If you've updated them, if you've updated your 84 plus, you should have the math print option with the shortcut menu. So in my first example here, I'm going to do the sine of pi over 6. Feels a little bit backwards because maybe that angle measure in radians doesn't come up until later. All right, but I'm just going to do pi. Wanted to do a reminder of, I can do a fraction here. So I'm going to do alpha y equals. I could do it the old-fashioned horizontal way, but I wanted to remind us that we have that. Reminder of where pi is. Move to the denominator, put 6. Move over here, close my parentheses. Along the top of the screen, it gives me some indicators or some of the mode settings that I have. This is in radian mode, so I just go ahead, press enter, and it'll display the sine of pi over 6. Okay, and then I wanted to challenge my students. Maybe they were just getting started thinking about angle measure in radians. And so what angle measured in degrees is equivalent to pi over 6? Just thinking about what I could put there. And I wanted to just remind us that you don't have to switch in mode from radian measure to degree measure. So I'm going to do sine again. And so a student might guess something. We'll just try it. 30 degrees. If I want to see degrees, If I say degrees, if I see it in a textbook, that means the angle measure is degrees. I like to maintain that same convention on my calculator. If it's not degrees, it's going to be radians. If it is degrees, a degree sign will be there. That is in second of apps. That's actually the angle menu. Second, and then the apps key. The first choice is degrees, and that puts a degree sign on there. Even if I'm in radian mode, it's taking the sign of 30 degrees, okay? Always want to put that on there. All right, another thing I wanted to show in the home screen, often overlooked, is I can access things that are in the Y equals menu and do like function notation, evaluate a function. All right, evaluate a function. So shortcut for Y1, alpha trace. I want Y1, so I'll press the 1 button. Y1 of 3 5/10. We don't really know what function is in there, but just to demonstrate, we can do function notation on the home screen. All right, so what function was in there? I had a few typed in there already. Oh, maybe working some projectile motion problems. We want to evaluate it for X is going to represent time. Time is 3.5 seconds. Okay. Other ways you can evaluate that function, you can look at a table, you can get values from a graph, but a reminder, there's a shortcut to the Y equals variables, and you can evaluate functions on the home screen. All right, looking at this document that's going to be available to you, that kind of takes care of the first screen over here on the left. In this document, this is the Word version or a PDF version of it. You'll see that's in blue. So I wanted to talk about what does that mean. On my home screen, if I press the cursor, if I press the up arrow, it's highlighted in blue. If I press up again, it's highlighted in blue. Once it's highlighted, that means it is selected. And I can just keep on going as far up as the history allows me. It's selected, and if I press enter, it brings it down to the editing line. So that's copy and paste on the home screen. All right? Get it highlighted in blue, press enter, and then it brings it down there to the home screen. All right, a couple more things on the home screen. -3, want to remind us that there's a test menu there. I'll put less than -2, true or false. All right, so my calculator will return 1 if it is true and 0 if it is false. So that one looks to be true. So a challenge I would say to my students would be start out with the -3, then change something about the rest of that expression to make it be false. Change something about it to make it be false. Here's another way we can use this. Is -3 squared the same thing as, actually that's the opposite of 3 squared. Is that the same as -3 squared? We'd like for our students to know, and then our calculator can lend some support to that. So just talking about the importance of correct notation, okay, on my calculator and on paper and when we're answering something. Next thing I'm going to do is put in a sort of random number. This is the first 4 digits of the population of my hometown in 2016. That's fairly random. Would anybody ever consider that? This is the first 4 digits of the population of my hometown, Frankfort, Kentucky, in 2016. Why did I pick that? Because it's not likely that somebody else would pick it, and it's also not likely that it would work for some of the things I want to explore that kind of look like doing algebra. My calculator is a number machine. It's a numerical device, but I can have it display some things that look algebra-ish. I'll take x plus 3, and I'll square that. And sometimes I have students that have symptoms of middle term itis, and they might think that that's going to be x squared plus 9. All right, true or false? Is that going to be a 0 or a 1? You can chat out an answer if you'd like. I'll go ahead and press. All right, true or false? Well, you might say it depends. All right. For the example that I chose, it is false. Okay, so the reason it was false is because I picked a number that I was pretty sure it wouldn't work with. Are there any numbers for which that would be true? Well, I can, actually I didn't want to do that. I could, oh, yeah, I did want to do that. I'm finished with that projectile motion problem. I want to take that expression, that equation that I had on the home screen and put it here. And the reason I want to do this is to remind us that on the home screen, if you want to copy and paste, you just move up and press enter. If I want it in a different location, I can use the entry key. So I'm going to do second entry, and that pastes that there. And that which was on the home screen, the last entry that I have, and now it's in a different location. And so let's look at a table of that. Is it ever true? Oh, it happens to be true when x equals 1. All right, so back on the home screen, just a reminder, we stored a value there, and I didn't want it to be true because I wanted to show a counter example. All right, moving along swiftly, I'm going to clear out some stuff, just a few things about graphing. If I put in 0.5x plus 10, and I'll do a zoom 4 graph. And you go, oh, it's not working. Miss Casey, my calculator is not graphing it. I would have my students explore in a table, tell me input, output values, those kind of things. Another thing you can do is press trace. It will bring you to the middle X value of your window. In my case, it's 0. And it tells me that when I traced on that, it was 10. Y is 10. And if I go ahead and press enter, it'll jump and make that be the value there. It will make that be the center value of my screen. All right, so what did I do? I pressed trace and then enter, and it jumped to that point. So that's a shortcut that sometimes people forget or didn't know about. All right, I'll go ahead and turn this one on. A reminder there, if the equal sign is vacant, is not blocked in, the expression is still there, but it's not active. All right, I press graph. Oh, that's not the window I wanted. So if I want to stop it, I can press on, and that interrupts the graphing. Let me change it to a different window with a zoom 4. If I use the enter button, that will pause it and then resume. So just wanted to mention when you're graphing, you can press on to interrupt your graph. You can press enter to pause and enter again to resume. I'm going to finish up here in a couple more minutes, but I did want to talk about using the interactive draw menu. I'll get rid of both of these. And I'm going to put in x squared plus 2x minus 2. And I'll have a look at that graph. All right, a reminder in y equals, if you move to the left of the equal sign, you can change the graph style, thick or thin or dotted or above or below, and you can also change the color. I'm going to leave it just the way it is. All right, is that a function? Well, my calculator is really only a function graph, or y is a function of x, so it already had to be there. But let's illustrate. One of the strategies that your students might use is to think about the vertical line test. Okay, so out of the draw menu, choose number 4 for vertical line, and you can get a moving vertical line. Okay. This is a great instructional tool with the software up front. Have students be driving the software for you. If you have an interactive whiteboard, they can be up there doing that for you, or pass along your mouse. The style would allow me to change the style of that vertical line. So you can move left and right and say, tell me, can you support the notion that this is a function? All right, so we can see that we can change the style. I press the graph button, which on the calculator is right below the word style. All right, so I'll just say OK to that. So we have illustrated using a vertical line test that that's a function. If I wanted to think about its inverse, would its inverse be a function? How can we think about that? Is its inverse a function? Well, we could do the horizontal line test. All right. Yeah, you saw my cluttered up screen there. I love the background a lot. And there we go. All right, horizontal line test. So out of the draw menu, second program for the draw menu, horizontal line test. So you can do the same thing. You can get a horizontal line moving up and down on your graph to determine if the inverse of that's going to be a function or a relation. So since I've talked about inverse, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've graphed something. I've graphed a function. I want to see what its inverse might look like. So in the draw menu, choice 8 takes me back to the home screen, so I have to know where that function is. It's in, I'm pretty sure I put it in Y1. Remember, a shortcut is alpha trace. Get my 1. Go ahead and put that on there. By golly, it's graphing set of points. I had y equals a function of x. Now it's graphing those. When you go into inverse, you can change the color that it graphs. You can also do that in your original y equals. Okay, then you can talk about symmetry and things such as that. I'm going to finish up with 2 more things quickly. I might have my students work this out for me. What is the inverse of this? What is the rule for the inverse of that? Okay, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 2. Swap your variables, solve, things like that. The inverse is not a function. It's going to take more than one part. Okay, so I want to show how to copy and paste. Okay, I'm going to do what's second recall. It's second of the store button. It's second recall. And I have stored something in Y0, alpha trace to get my Y pop-up menu. Y0. So it's going to copy what I have down there in Y0. It's not showing. My students are determining the rule for the inverse of that, and it pasted. Okay, so it should graph a portion of that, should graph it in red. Let's see if it does. So I wanted to highlight using the recall to paste that in there. Okay, and looks pretty good. I can't trace on the inverse that was drawn using the draw menu. It just plots points, but once you put the rule in here, you can trace on it. And if we wanted the other branch of that, I would copy what I have in Y2 and do the other branch of that, the -2 minus that. All right, so second recall. Get it out of my pop-up Y shortcut. It's in Y0. It's also in Y2 now. Press Enter. I want to change the plus in front of the radical sign to a minus. A shortcut to get back to the beginning is second left. Takes me back to the beginning. And change that to subtraction, and that should graph the other branch of that. Okay, question, can you tell it to store the draw inverse from the screen? I am guessing no, simply because it plots points and doesn't have it stored anywhere in information. Somebody else with a different answer? Okay, how do you delete the horizontal and vertical? Okay, I'm finished with inverse now. We've seen it. We've reviewed recall. And how do you delete those? You can use a clear draw, which is second program, the draw menu number 1, and it clears other things that you have. I'll go ahead and clear that. This will clear the inverse that it graphed, but it'll still have anything that I had active in the Y equals menu. All right, and in 30 seconds that I have remaining, I'm going to talk about using a program to store data. Okay, I'm going to use on to interrupt that. I'm finished with that graph. I have a program here called Triangle. It's one of the files that's going to be available to you. I'm just going to show you what's inside that Turned off functions, turns off plot. It changed the mode, so I have a graph and table display, sets up a window. And it stores some information, stores ordered pairs in L1 and L2. Very simple. When you get this program, you can look at the contents of it and go, oh, I see how it does that. And so here's what it does. If I run the program called Triangle, it sets it up so I have a split screen that shows ordered pairs being graphed for a triangle. And on the right side of the screen, it's showing the lists, creating those points to make the triangle. The nice part about this is it does a split screen on the handheld as well. In the software, I can always get some multiple representations by using my View Cubed option. But on the handheld, it's nice to do that using the mode. So I split it to graph and table. And so I have a graph, and here this is actually the list location. That's all I'm going to say about this. I'm going to this program is included in the files that you get, and if you have questions, feel free to email me. This is a nice start for students who are thinking about how do we reflect this, what do we do to L1 or L2 if I want to do some translations, whatever kind of transformation you want, the data is already there and it's already graphed. All right, so I'm going to try to catch up on the chat window and see what else we have going on. And back to you, Margot.
Thank you, Ruth. Actually, Mike, I think you have it back. Oop. There we go. Okay, thank you, Ruth. That was great. I'm going to segue into actually a couple answers from the chat window. The OSs, and Ruth had mentioned this as well, for the TI-84 Plus CE, it's 522. For the 84 Plus C Silver Edition, it's 4.2. And for the 84 Plus, it's 2.55 MP. And there was another question about using how to update, and yes, as long as your calculator's got the USB port, you can use the USB cable that came with the calculator with the mini USB to the standard USB, and use TI Connect CE to update it. That's free. That's our new wonderful TI Connect. You can even connect several calculators. I have several calculators connected, and I'll talk a little bit about that later if there's time. So for this section, we're going to talk about piecewise function graphing and get a little bit of an insight into transformation graphing. And I wanted to start by saying, as Ruth did, that there is a handout, and in the handout, there's several handouts. In one handout, there's going to be some links to some really good information. For the CE, there is a Getting Started. There is a full guidebook, and it happens to be listed under the 84 Plus C, but it serves well for the TI-84 Plus, the TI-84 Plus C, and the TI-84 Plus CE up to 5.0. It's jam-packed full of examples, and it's a pretty big PDF file, but it does have a lot of information that you may find useful. Also, there was a question about SmartView. If you have SmartView license, yes, you can update the SmartView CE, which we're showing Ruth's using, I'm using as well tonight. And there's also the 90-day trial if you just want to experience for a while. TI Connect, I mentioned, free download. It's how to manage your calculator files, and it's also an interesting tool if you have groups of students and you want them to come up and connect to TI Connect. You can connect to several calculators, your USB ports on your computer, and have your students share, say, their group work. This handout will also have, I put in a whole bunch of extra little stuff, but there will be the reminders about the webinar tonight. So for transformation graphing, there's some tips, and so again, it might be too fast to follow along. You can always, like Mike said, look at the video, but you also know that you can come back to a handout. Here's a little bit about what I'm going to do tonight on Piecewise, so it's all sitting there so you can listen, and then I put in a whole bunch of bonus tips in this handout, in particular graph table mode. As Ruth mentioned, it is my favorite thing, totally. So let's get started. Piecewise function graphing. I'd like to call out the TI-84 activities. Ruth went to the website. I'm going to show you a little bit of an activity that's there, and it's called Which Garage is Better? And it deals with piecewise function graphing. And so I'm going to pop open the teacher notes that you can download with this. And so the activity is really, really sweetly laid out. In particular, in this case, the students are given the cost schedule for 2 different parking garages. They go through some very constructive activity about creating tables, and then finally they do, they have to come up with the piecewise functions to analyze the cost. And so what we're going to do is walk through a little bit of how we're graphing piecewise function on the calculators today. And I'll walk through all the setup. This can be done on the 84 Plus as well. The only thing different is that when you hit things like the color setting, a little bit different. And in terms of grid line, the 84 Plus has dots. And so you can try using those for a little bit more on the screen. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to leave this guy up because what we're looking at, let me move him over a little bit. Whoops-a-daisy. Let me not move him over a little bit. Yeah, let me move him over a little bit. What we're looking at is this, the equation set that the kids created and how you would enter it. So, gee, you know, you look at this and you kind of say, whoa, what's going on here? Ruth had mentioned about the relation test that's in the test menu where you're getting answers of true and false. And so if you haven't done Piecewise, what you need to just play with a little bit is first to know how the calculator interprets something like x is less than or equal to 5. And so we're going to go back in the test menu, as you saw earlier in the session, and we're going to get less than or equal to, which looks like it's 6, and 5, and is that what I really want to do? Do I know what x is? Well, do I? You don't know how the calculator is set up, really. So I'm going to go and start this and say, no, actually, it turns out I'm in a default setting, so x is 0. But what I'd like to do is say that I want to store 5 into x. And then I want to see again, and this is just a reminder if you haven't used these relation tests, that you can go ahead and kind of test this statement of x less than or equal to 5. Okay, so I want 6, and then I want 5, and is that true? Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, and you get a 1. So this idea of using 0 and 1s when you're doing piecewise has been around for a while on the calculators, and so let's go into y equal and see how we'll type this in. So the first equation is 10 for x is less than or equal to 1. And in order to use this idea of true-false, if I just put 10 there, it's just going to graph 10. But here's sort of the trick of the trade. It turns out that the grapher will not graph an undefined point. And so the little bit of a trick of the trade here is that, and this has been, like a lot of you probably familiar with this, but some of you may not have seen this, is that, whoops-a-daisy, I want to put down a 1 and close it, is that what I'm going to do is divide 10 by basically either 1 or 0. As x is graphed across the graphing domain, which right now, let's see, I just have it set at standard window. I think for the activity, I'm going to just go ahead and set up the window a little bit And I'm also going to turn that wonderful grid line on as Ruth had. So basically going into format, which is second format above zoom. Again, on 84 Plus, you do have dots if you wish to try that out. And what we're going to do now is go back here and see what happens. And so if we graph this, oh, wait a minute, that's not a bad window, isn't it? So anyway, the kids in the activity go through that, a good window for this problem. I'm just going to set it up quick. Whoopsie daisy, sorry. Just setting up the window, and they used a scale of 5 for Y. And now let's see what goes on. Oh, okay. So right now, what's happening is 10 is being graphed when this is true, and that's when X is less than or equal to 1. And in that window, it's between 0 and 1 inclusive. And so let's go try to do the second piece of it. And we are going to now experience sort of changing the style. Now, in the 84 Plus, when you get your cursor over to the line style, let me clear this off again. When you get over here on the 84 Plus, you press Enter and you can change the line style. When you are on the C or the CE, if you press Enter, there's just a few more options, right? So I want to go back to blue because I'm going to put these in separately, and I want them all blue. That's my blue street garage. And I'm okay with the line and press Enter. When I come over here, what do? All right, I've got to be careful here because we're going to be doing a division. Seems odd, but it is all a logic test. So we're going to make sure that we put in enough parentheses. And then we're going to go ahead and do this tricky little division by 0 and 1. And it's actually, given all the STEM discussions and programming, this is actually now a beautiful discussion because as kids get into programming and really getting into the system and making the calculator do what they wanted to do, like Ruth just showed that TI basic program, they need to know these logic tests. They need to understand these true-false ideas. So this is a kind of unbelievable, beautiful segue into helping them learning programming. So am I okay? 5. Oh, yeah, and I just saw that in the chat window. I sort of missed something. Okay, so let me back up there, and I think I better go second insert and plus 10. So thanks for catching that. Whoops. Too many pluses. Okay. So am I right? Am I doing good? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Ellen. All right. So let's go ahead and graph, and we can see the function. All right. We can trace it, and when you trace, you know you're going to be tracing on a y1, y2. So that part's a little bit, let me go back to x equals 0. And that, whoops, what the, okay. I just managed to change my window. Okay, let me go back to that graph. Okay, this is in 2 pieces now. Even though this was one function, and it is in 2 pieces, but it's actually in 2 pieces in y equal. So you have to be careful about how you interpreted it. And this is, like I said, Alan, yes, it is a really, really cool trick. It's, again, wonderful logic for setting up for programming. Now, in order to keep moving along and show you all the good things that we're going to do, you can think about what the next thing is, that you can change Y3 and Y4 to red color if you're on the C or CE, and you can be putting in the logic test the same way with this little division trick, okay? We showed the activity, we showed that, and I do want to show one thing that's going to happen. We said that when it graphs, it won't graph an undefined point. But if you go to table, you'll see the full story. Because the full story is that in Y1, we said 10 when X is less than 1, and you see those values. For the rest of it, you're seeing error. And it's basically because it's false. And up here, you're seeing arrow for 0, 1, and then it picks up. So there could be delightful conversations with your kids about, again, the logic. So I want to stop here and say, did you kind of notice something about my SmartView versus Ruth's SmartView? I've had the privilege to work in product development for TI for a few years, and one interesting thing I get to do is I get to see the next release and play with it and work with the developers and the educators with new software. So you'll notice a shiny new look. This is a preview of what will be released in fall. It has a shiny new look where the calculator has a little different vision, a little different style, I'd say, than what Ruth showed. And also, I want to just pop through a couple things that Ruth did on SmartView just to show the nice favorites. We still have view cubed, which means that I can still have a view of the equation, the table, and the graph all in one. What's really cool about this is I can also take these screens while I'm teaching, have my presentation off to the side, and, come on, get over there. There we go. And now, if you are creating your lessons where then you have to post later because maybe kids are absent or you need to, interesting, or you need to, you know, post later for kids, you can go ahead and in real time just drag them over. I'm using a pen tablet tonight, and I'm sensing some delay with WebEx, so I apologize for that. But again, SmartView, you could also drag from here. You can also change this view to having the keypad and large screen. I've got view cube still open. I could also be showing a key press history. I highly recommend that you keep that a little bit low so the kids only see the last presses. If you need to do this, you can copy these over into your presentation as well. I'm going to close view cubed, and there we go, and close keypad for a second. I do prefer this view. And one other thing that you can do is, let's go back to the calculator view. If you're in a situation where you'd like the calculator higher on the screen, you can actually pull the toolbar below. Let's say you're using a whiteboard and you don't want to stretch. It could be down here. When I was teaching, I had a situation where the emulator on the left-hand side was not good for me at all. So I'm going to go back to this view, and I'm going to pop the emulator over to the other side using the icons down here, and now I can be on the other side. For whatever reason I might need to be, I can have this as my view. So there's a lot of different options in SmartView. The new thing in 5.3, just so you know, when it's coming in the fall, is the new look of the emulator. And then also there is a new option. So remember what my y equals looks like, okay? There is an option to save the state of your calculator. So let's say I was doing a class prep, and I want this already prepared for, say, my first period class, and I want to come in and I just want to load it. So I've sort of set this up tonight to say that I could load my emulator state, and I'm just about to start my my pre-calc class, and I want to go ahead and get my Piecewise up. That was the which garage is better. I open that up. It loads. It loads. Come on. There it goes. It's done. And watch what happens. My y equals totally populated as I want it with my blue and my red lines. My window is just totally correct for this, and I can start my discussion and have the kids go to town. So again, this is a feature coming in the fall, and in the meantime, excuse me, in the meantime, all the other features that I showed you are in your current SmartView 5.2. Okay. So Piecewise, let me show you one thing. I did that in the preview of fall. Yay! So again, for Piecewise function, when you get the handout, there are some links to some activities that will help you. Oh, wait a minute. I've got one more thing to show you. And this is a little bit of a preview, again, of fall. So we like this, and we will never lose this because there's a lot of great mathematical discussion and how this is laid out. But I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting that is coming in the fall. So we know that for some kids, the disconnect between seeing a textbook problem like this and then having to kind of transition and learn something else while you're teaching about the piecewise function can be a little distracting. And so this feature is still going to be here, okay? But I'm going to show you a little bit of a preview. Again, this is a preview. Piecewise. And when I enter Piecewise, I can come here and, oh my gosh, look at that. Math print template. So Truth goes, the crowd goes wild, yay! And so now I can go ahead and put in my 10, and when they're in the condition box, it's a very special box that totally understands what this means, and I can go ahead, whoops, am I there? 6, 1, whoops, delete, and come back, and actually, you know what I can, well, I don't want to put Y2 in there because if I put Y2, I will get this as well. But let's just say I put in 5X just to speed this up because I'm watching time. And again, this is in the activity that you'll get the links to, and hopefully, I hope you enjoy those because they're delightful. Let me go back here, and it was less than or equal to, I think, again. Oops, it was greater than or equal to. Sorry, 4, 1. Okay, so you get the picture though, but now instead of looking like this in 2 pieces, and it's actually now in one graph. So if I graph, you're going to see the orange. I must have made it. Oh, yeah, this is because I did 5X. But basically, you'll see in this case the orange one was overdrew the blue one, and then I just quickly put in another graph, which is down here. Parallel. Okay. Parallel. Good segue to the next topic. Okay. So, you know, I showed you that magic, the save emulator, load emulator that's going to come in the fall, okay? So I'm going to load an emulator state right now, and it's just called, for me, called a clean state instead of resetting the calculator, because when I'm teaching, sometimes I just want to now, I got a clean Y equal, okay? And that, because you could reset the emulator, I just chose to do it this way to demonstrate that feature coming in the fall. Now we're going to segue into the next activity, and that is called Boats in Motion. So again, from 84 activities, I'm just calling out Boats in Motion because I want to show you, and let me go to the website to just remind you that when you do go to 84 activities and you search on activities, you can search on, you can search on Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus. You can also see that you can download files in a zip. There's teacher's notes, there's student activities. It's in a doc form, so you can modify it yourself, and then it also shows you that it's for all the calculators, okay? So it's very, very balanced. And in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're just going to look at transformation graphing if you haven't played for it for a while. There are some features that are coming in the fall that make life a little bit easier and helpful when you're using transformation graphing. I'm going to follow steps that work on the 84 Plus, the 84C, and the 84 CE. So I'm going to go to Y equal, and, well, I'm going to go to Y equal and just say, oh, that's just my Y equal editor. But what I really want to do is go to apps, and I want to go to transformation graphing. Transformation graphing, you can see I am using the new version of it, so there's a little bit of difference, but the keystrokes I'm following will work on all the calculators. And I'm going to go into Y equal, and you're going to notice that maybe on your version, see this play pause symbol? That's on all of your functions. Coming in the fall, on CE, we're going to be opening up the rest of Y equals so you can graph as well. So you'll have 2 transform functions, and then you'll also be able to graph. Right now on transformation graphing, you've got the whole Y equal editor available, but you can only transform one function at a time and graph one function at a time. So we have to use A, B, and C, A, B, C, and or D to do a transformation. And here I'm just going to look at a line in the format of mx equal b, y equals mx plus b. And you know that we need to be flexible with our parameter choices because the kids get to science class and they see distance equals speed times time, and they have a hard time relating d, s, and t back over to y and m and x. So using different parameters, first of all, it's a rule of transformation graphing, A, B, C, and or D. And we're also helping the kids out to make that transition. So I'll go ahead and see where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and just do a zoom decimal window. I really, really like to go into format because I do like to see that the grid's on. Okay, and then I'm going to see what can I do with this. So transformation graphing, if you're familiar, you can change the parameters as long as they're showing up down here. You can change the parameters. So I'm changing the slope now. Looks like I'm stepping by 1. I can change the intercept. Oh. And you have to ask yourself the question, what would you ask your students as you're doing this? What are they trying to conjecture? What are all the things you want to talk about slope and intercept? Let's focus on intercept for a second. Now you see the setup button, and as Ruth showed you so smoothly, that the setup button is above graph. And so in the other view, I kind of have to remember if the setup's down here, I press graph. That's kind of the new 5.3 feature. I'm not going to press that yet. I'm going to use the regular feature like right it is now. If you go to Window and you arrow up, there's a settings menu. Okay. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit, and I'm going to do trail on. That's also in format. I'm going to go ahead and create a movie. I'm going to let B be the transform variable so it's turned on. I'm going to step by 0.5. And you notice in the starting with the 5.10s, if you put in 5/10, it put in the leading 0 so the kids don't get confused about the decimal. And I'm going to put in the max of 4. There's a little bit of a formula about how many screens you can compute. And now I'm going to press graph. Even though that says it there on 5.3, it was always what you were supposed to do next, and it's going to compute a few screens. And watch what happens. Yes, this is being recorded, and you can view it again, and the handouts also will help that a little bit. So what could I ask the kids now? What's going on here? What do the lines look like? Hopefully parallel. Hopefully hopefully the intercept is changing, making if-then statements just from this little movie playing. I could go ahead and pause it and talk about this a little bit. I can also go back up, and now I'm going to show you the 5.3 feature, okay? Drum roll, please, 5.3. We put the setup key here so you didn't have to fuss with going to Window and Format anymore. You just go ahead and press, it's F5, so you just press graph, and you bounce right to the screen you wanted to. Remember settings we were there before? It's all sort of one-stop shopping. And now I could go ahead and change this movie, or I could even stop it. And you do have to know to stop movies because otherwise they will keep playing. So I just stop the movie and I come here in the graph. But I still had trail on, so now I can just do the tactile press of the key and say, what's happening, kids? Okay, so I'm looking at time, and I promised to stop at 3 minutes to, and I just switched to 2 minutes to. So remember that we have some wonderful things going on. I do invite you to think hard about using TI Connect also in your class, because watch what happens. I'm going to tell you that I have got 3 84s connected, and let's say my students were doing some graphs, and I can have them come up and connect and watch this in one click. Bam. I could talk about what the kids are doing. Okay? With that, I'm going to pass it back to Mike, and let's get done with the evening.
Thanks so much, Margot and Ruth, for everything you shared. As Margot mentioned at the very beginning in our agenda, we're really excited to be sharing that the T-Cubed International Conference this year is coming to San Antonio. And it's a little bit of a ways away, but there's no reason why we can't start planning now. So please feel free to visit our website to get some more information. We are giving away to one lucky winner a conference registration for the T-Cubed International Conference, and tonight's lucky winner is Janet Holmes. So Janet, congratulations. We'll be in touch over email in the coming days to give you a little more information, but we were able to see Janet as well as everyone else at the T-Cubed International Conference this year. To receive a certificate of attendance, go ahead and click the link in the chat window. Also listed is a link for the documents that were used tonight by Ruth and Margot as promised. Again, if you missed any part of this, have no fear, you'll automatically get a follow-up email, and the follow-up email will contain a link to the recording, as well as a link to the documents and a link to the certificate as well. Thanks so much, Margot and Ruth, for everything you shared tonight, and thanks so much, everyone, for attending tonight. I'm really excited about what's coming down the pipeline for TI-84 Plus family, and I hope you're as excited as I am. So thanks so much, everyone, and we hope to see you back online next week. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.